This video is sponsored by Amino Apps. TF2 Amino is the ultimate social community built by and dedicated for TF2 fans. On the app, there's a front page of featured posts, public chats, DMing, quizzes, and other cool stuff. One of my favorite aspects of the app that I think you guys will really enjoy is the ability to vote on opinion polls for weapons and discuss balancing. This fun little poll here was in deadlock 50-50 when I voted. Another thing that's really special about the app is the huge abundance of artists that publish TF2 art. The app is also great for finding more people to play TF2 with. If you're interested, links for the iOS and Android versions of the app are in the description of this video, and if you want to follow me, my screen name is Lukey Pooky. Hey, what's up guys, I'm Lukey Pooky, and today I'm going to be talking about the airstrike. The airstrike is a primary for the soldier that allows you to capitalize on the extra airtime the base jumper grants you. In this video, I'm going to go in depth on the weapon's stats, the strategy that works best for the weapon, and its viability. First, let's talk about the weapon's history. The airstrike was added to the game along with the base jumper in the Love and War update on June 18th, 2014. Originally, it had a blast radius penalty of -15%, a damage penalty of -25%, and a rocket jump blast damage reduction of -25%. You also started with 3 rockets instead of 4. As it is today, you gain +1 clip size for each kill, and your firing speed increased by 65% while rocket jumping. About a year later in the gunmetal update of 2015, they removed the starting clip size penalty. In addition, they reduced the radius penalty from -15% to 10%, reduced the damage penalty from -25% to -15%, and the rocket jump blast damage reduction was also reduced from -25% to -15%. But come the Tough Break update in December of the same year, they added an additional blast radius penalty stacked onto the other one that is only applied when you're rocket jumping. I'm going to now go in depth on the airstrike's penalties before getting to its upsides. If you use the airstrike while not rocket jumping, which is very common for soldier and often necessary in closed areas, you'll notice the weapon does very poorly. What immediately comes to mind for comparison is the Liberty launcher, despite its damage penalty differing. Although the airstrike's damage penalty is smaller, you can't forget its other negative attribute, a base -10% explosion radius while not airborne. To get a good picture of how an explosion radius can affect a weapon, take a look at the direct hit. The direct hit is an extreme example of how an explosion radius penalty creates a smaller splash zone, if you will, completely cutting off damage at a distance where the stock would do like 30 to 40. With the airstrike, yes, the explosion radius penalty is much smaller, but because the projectile speed isn't faster like that of the direct hit, you're going to have to go for mainly splash damage as opposed to directly shooting people for maximum damage. Sometimes one of your rockets will not register and do damage when it would have with the stock. This doesn't happen too much when not airborne for shooting up close individual enemies. The airstrike makes your blast radius retract 1 foot around, so you cannot hit spread out people with single rockets as effectively. Think of it like this: the airstrike mildly combines the explosion radius penalty of the direct hit and the damage penalty of the Liberty launcher, but unlike those 2 rocket launchers, it doesn't have a faster projectile speed. The airstrike is, after all, designed to cripple you while you're on foot. So now let's talk about when you're airborne. When rocket jumping, the blast radius falls further to -28%, making the radius about 2/3 of the stock's. The stock rocket launcher does damage across 9.1 feet, meaning that when you rocket jump with the airstrike, you splash damage across only about 6.5 feet, about 2.5 feet less. It's like when you're on the ground, but roughly 3 times worse. If instead of predicting a specific enemy's movement, you are spamming directly into a semi-spread out cluster of enemies, the blast radius is a great detriment. Now that we've gone in depth on the weapon's penalties, let's talk about the positives and band it all together. The airstrike's firing rate increases by 65% while you are airborne. This means you can shoot rockets every 0.28 seconds rather than every 0.8 seconds. This firing rate feels and reminds me of an upgraded rocket launcher in Man vs. Machine. At this rate, while you're at 0 kills, you can use 1 to rocket jump and then shoot your remaining 3 rockets in under 1 second. In addition to the firing rate boost, your base clip size increases for each kill you get up to +4, which makes the clip size 8 total. A big clip size plus the super fast firing rate makes you run out of ammo very quickly. You have 20 reserve ammo, meaning once you have an 8 rocket clip size, you can only fire 2.5 clips before running out of rockets. At max clip size, it takes you just over 2 seconds to fire off 8 rockets while mid-air. It will take about 2 seconds flat to fire off 7 rockets if, say, you use one of your 8 to jump and then fire your remaining clip. So if you take all this stuff we've talked about and combine it together, how much damage can you put out with the airstrike while flying in the air? Because of its weak damage and its smaller blast radius, it's best to shoot all of your rockets onto one fixed location or on one specific moving target, instead of spreading rockets evenly amongst a big group of people. If you do spread all of your rockets across several people, you'll find yourself doing weak damage to them all, versus targeting one person or a compressed cluster and doing much more damage to one person or people. Also, I recommend using the base jumper along with the airstrike, since it allows you to stay in the air for longer to have an easier time firing all your rockets. Realistically, while you have a decent height in the air above enemies, your rockets will be doing around 35 to 80 damage, depending on if you shoot next to someone for a splash or hit someone directly. This means if you were to shoot 3 rockets at a person while in the air, it would do 105 to 240 damage based on the precision of your shots. If you were to fire 7 rockets onto a fixed target, you would do 175 to 490 damage, which, if landed precisely, can take out an overhealed heavy. These numbers do, however, belong to a perfect world where you can land all of your rockets without missing. You'll likely miss at least 1 or 2 shots from a combination of mispredicting movement and perhaps misjudging the firing rate, something that can probably be overcome by practice. One of the biggest strengths of the airstrike is taking out sentry positions, since you can fire upon a fixed sentry and take it out very quickly with your firing rate and extra clip size. Remember, a level 3 has 216 health. That's the damage for shooting at one fixed target. Now let's talk about if you go against what I recommend and spread damage evenly. Well, due to the weapon's decreased blast radius, you must shoot close to enemies, so if 4 enemies are fairly spread out and you shoot 2 of your 8 rockets at each one, you'll do roughly 70 to 160 damage to each one of them. Because of the likelihood of missing at least 1 or 2 shots, you most likely will do damage on the lower side of that range. You could probably get better at the damage spreading strategy come practice, but in my opinion, it's not as effective. If you don't take my word for it, try both and see what works best for you. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about the 15% blast jump damage reduction. It's easy to forget. The gunboats reduce your rocket jumping self-damage by 60%, so the airstrike's upside is a quarter of that. It's a nice little touch to the weapon, although it doesn't make too much of a noticeable difference. With everything stat related now gone over, let's talk about the secondary weapon you will be using in more depth. If you choose the base jumper, which I recommend, keep in mind that it makes you a very easy target for classes with hit scan weapons. If you try to float above a heavy, no matter how much strafing you do, he can mow you down in seconds. A scout can also kill you easily if he's close enough to you, or he could at the very least inflict knockback on you and mess up your air control. And as you'd imagine, a sniper can easily shoot you out of the sky. However, the base jumper makes the projectile based classes, soldier and demo, have incredible difficulty predicting your movement. It's for this reason that the base jumper has been banned by some competitive leagues. So with all this considered, the base jumper airstrike combo is super effective against soldiers and demos alike, but bad against hit scan classes like heavy, sniper, or up close scouts. The exception is if you take one of these classes, especially sniper, by surprise. Take note if you're watching this in the future that this video was made before the pyro update and the base jumper is supposed to be nerfed according to Valve's June blog post. So now that we've gone over how to effectively put out damage with the airstrike, let's talk about how it works in certain settings. In 6 vs 6, the airstrike is allowed by ESEA, but the base jumper is not because of its strength against soldiers and demos, namely how you can currently, as of now, undeploy and redeploy the parachute. Because the airstrike does not work very well without the base jumper, and stacking up kills with it is much harder in 6s, the weapon isn't banned, but is never really used. The stock and the direct hit are much better fitted for 6s, and therefore see more playtime. In Highlander, the bans of these weapons are opposite. The base jumper is allowed by UGC, while the airstrike is banned. The base jumper is allowed since it sucks against heavies and snipers. A base jumping soldier is easy prey for this setting. Quickly bombing in with no parachute is more effective in Highlander for most situations. If I were to say why the airstrike has been banned for Highlander, I'd say it's for some of the following reasons. It's godly for taking out sentries and for spamming a specific place. Its strength is based on how many kills you stack up, which can give the soldier on the winning team a possible unfair advantage. In combination with the base jumper, it's just not fun to fight against for most classes. And something else that's kind of interesting that some maybe haven't thought of, a Bizarre Bargain Sniper can take out a soldier with +4 clip size and gain +4 heads. Doubt that's the reason why it's banned, but it is pretty cool. Still, people have different opinions on the airstrike, and a survey from January showed that 29% of people want it to be unbanned. If you play Highlander, I'm interested to hear your opinion on the airstrike in the comments below. Now that we've talked about competitive viability, what about casual? Some may argue that basing a weapon's power off of how many kills you can stack with it is unfair when it makes a downside a potential plus side. When Valve took away the -25% starting clip size penalty, they took away a penalty that could be reversed into a positive attribute by killing dudes. I'm glad they did that, although I don't think that's what their thought process was. In my opinion, the airstrike is not overpowered for casual play, since it can be hard countered so easily by hit scan classes when the base jumper is used alongside it. I would recommend using it perhaps for taking out sentry positions if you feel it will work more effectively than the direct hit. Also, use it to capitalize on a team that lacks heavies and highly skilled snipers. It's also just really fun to mess around with, perhaps pulling off rocket jumps you wouldn't be able to do without the extra firing speed and the clip size, and it's also pretty good for man versus machine. As I've said before, let me know your opinion on the airstrike in the comments below. It's okay if you disagree with me on something I've said. If so, I want to hear why. If you're new to my channel, feel free to check out my other videos, such as the one that questions if the escape plan is balanced, and a guide I just did for 5 soldier jumps that are pretty fun and useful. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to an artist named Fraud who helped me with my new intro. Link to his gallery on Steam in the description if you want to check out his work. With that being said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day or night, and peace out.